It's funny. Your 30s can feel like a real um, financial pressure point, can't they?
Oh, definitely.
Like your 20s, they're often about exploring, maybe making a few financial mistakes as you learn the ropes.
Learning curve.
But then you hit your 30s and suddenly it feels like, okay, time to actually start building something solid, financially speaking.
Yeah, the
I
foundation.
think that feeling, that pressure to get things sorted in this decade.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's pretty common, right? It's like that saying, 20s for learning, 30s for building.
And the 40s, hopefully, for enjoying the fruits of that building. It resonates. The 30s really are this critical phase for, long-term financial health.
Exactly. The choices you make now can have a huge impact down the line.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking at a really interesting resource. It's a podcast series called Mastering Money at 30, The Indian Playbook.
Okay.
Think of this as maybe a shortcut, a guide to the essential personal finance stuff that's super relevant for this stage of life.
Sounds useful. Tackling those big questions people have in their 30s.
Totally. And it's not just one thing. It covers, well, the whole spectrum, really, from just being more, aware of your finances to the nitty-gritty of budgeting, setting up a proper emergency fund. They even get into the whole old versus new tax regime thing for 2025.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. And investment strategies, especially when the market feels, well, all over the place. Plus, planning for bigger goals, retirement, and even just handling that gradual spending creep. Lifestyle inflation.
Right. It covers a lot of ground.
It really does.
Which is good because personal finance isn't just one skill, is it? It's all interconnected.
Yeah,
You need to see how the pieces fit.
exactly. So our mission today is to pull out the key insights from this Mastering Money at 30 series for you. By the end, hopefully you'll have a clearer picture of the main ideas, maybe some actionable steps.
Less stress, more confidence.
That's the plan. Okay, so this series, where does it really kick things off? What's the starting point?
Well, it rightly starts with the absolute baseline financial literacy.
Okay.
As they point out, just earning money, that's only step one, isn't it? Actually managing it well, understanding how to use it wisely, that's where the real control comes in.
That's so true. It's not just the inflow, it's the outflow and what you do with it. And they really hammer home the need to, consistently save something, get into that investing habit, and, crucially, have that safety net, the emergency fund.
Foundational habits, they sound simple, but getting them locked in is key.
Yeah. And they introduce a pretty handy framework for managing income, the 50-30-20 rule. Maybe you could walk us through that.
Sure. So the idea is pretty straightforward. You take your income after tax.
Right.
And you split it. 50% is meant for your needs. These are the essentials: rent, mortgage, groceries, transport, utilities. Things you absolutely have to pay for.
Must-haves.
Exactly. Then 30% is allocated for your wants. This is your lifestyle stuff. Eating out, entertainment, hobbies, travel, discretionary spending.
The fun stuff.
Kind of, yeah. And the last 20%. That's specifically earmarked for savings and investments.
Okay, 50-30-20. Needs, wants, savings. Simple but effective.
I think so. What's neat is it gives structure, but it's not totally rigid. It accepts that life isn't just bills, right? There's room for enjoyment. But it also makes saving and investing a clear priority, which is, well, essential for the long term. It's not about feeling deprived, just conscious allocation.
Makes sense. So once you've got that basic framework in mind, the next step is usually budgeting. The series tackles that too, I assume?
It does, and they try to counter that common idea that budgeting is like this awful restrictive chore.
Yeah, tedious.
Instead, they frame it as a tool, a powerful one actually, for getting control and just clarity when you actually track what's coming in and what's going out each month.
You see it in black and white.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You get real visibility into where the money's actually going.
Yeah.
And that can be, well, quite an eye-opener.
Oh, definitely. You might think but seeing those little daily coffees add up over a month,
Exactly. Those small leaks.
it can be surprising. And the series suggests practical ways, right? Budgeting apps or even just a simple spreadsheet.
Yeah, different tools. The main message seems to be find something that works for you, something you'll actually stick with, and review it regularly, monthly, ideally.
Consistency. That seems key. A budget isn't a set it and forget it thing.
Not at all. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
Monitoring, adjusting, making sure your spending actually lines up with your goals. And yeah, that point about the small recurring costs adding up, that's a big one.
Okay, so income allocation understood, budgeting started. What's the next pillar the Mastering Money at 30 series highlights.
Without a doubt, it's building that emergency fund.
The safety net.
Exactly. It's your financial cushion. It absorbs the shock if something unexpected happens, losing your job, a sudden medical bill, you name it.
And they suggest aiming for, what was it, 6 months worth of salary?
At least 6 months, yeah.
That can sound like a lot to some people. A big target.
It can feel daunting, true. But think about the peace of mind that buffer provides. It really shows why it's so important.
Yeah, that security is priceless.
It really is. And the series wisely advises keeping these funds somewhere super accessible, like a savings account, maybe a very liquid mutual fund.
Somewhere you can get it quickly.
Right. No penalties, no major delays. The goal here isn't earning big returns. It's purely security and instant access when you need it most.
Got it. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. The series also gets into something I know is on people's minds, especially with 2025 coming up, the old versus new tax regime choice.
Ah, yes. That can feel pretty complex.
Definitely overwhelming.
So the new tax regime, the idea was simplification, right? Lower tax rates across different income slabs. But the trade-off was losing most of those deductions and exemptions you had under the old regime. The series lays out these basic differences quite clearly.
So old regime, you can claim deductions for things like PPF, ELSS investments, health insurance under 80D, house rent allowance, lots of things.
The whole list, yeah.
Whereas the new regime basically says, look, lower rates, but forget most of those deductions.
That's the essential difference. And the series points out if you are actively using those tax-saving options, making those investments, claiming deductions,
then the old regime might still be better.
it could very well be.
Right.
Because those deductions can really bring down your taxable income quite a bit.
Right. But on the flip side, maybe if you're earlier in your career, you don't have tons of those investments yet.
Or maybe your income level means that even with the old regime deductions, the lower rates in the new regime just work out better overall.
Then the new regime could be simpler and save you money. They use an example, right? Someone earning 12 lakhs.
Yeah, they illustrate how the final tax bill could change depending on the deductions claimed under the old system versus just taking the lower rates of the new.
Which just proves there's no single right answer, is there?
Not at all. It's completely down to your individual situation, your income, how much you're investing in tax-saving stuff.
Yeah.
The advice from the series is spot on. Actually run the numbers for both regimes each year.
Definitely. It's not a decision you make once and stick with forever. Things change.
Your finances evolve, so review it annually. Good advice.
Okay, great. So moving on from taxes, let's talk investing. This is often the part that feels most intimidating, I think, especially with markets being, well, volatile.
Understandably so. But the Mastering Money at 30 series offers some good pointers here, too.
What's the main takeaway?
A key principle they really stress, especially given market ups and downs, is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And they outline several investment types that are particularly relevant for people in their 30s in India.
Okay, like what? They mentioned mutual funds and specifically SIPs, systematic investment plans. For anyone maybe not familiar, why are SIPs so often recommended?
Sure. So SIPs basically let you invest a fixed amount of money regularly, usually monthly, into a mutual fund.
Like automating your investing.
Pretty much. And that has two big advantages. First, it builds discipline. You invest regularly, rain or shine, without trying to guess the market. Second, it averages out your purchase cost over time. It's called rupee cost averaging. When the market's low, your fixed amount buys more units. When it's high, it buys fewer.
Ah, okay, so it smooths out the bumps.
Exactly. Over the long run, it can potentially improve your overall returns, and it takes away the stress of trying to time the market perfectly, which is, well, nearly impossible.
Makes a lot of sense. They also bring up index funds. Those are a type of mutual fund too, right?
That's correct. Index funds just aim to copy the performance of a specific market index, like the Nifty 50 or a Sensex.
So they're not trying to beat the market.
Nope, just match it. Because of that, they usually have lower fees, lower expense ratios compared to funds where a manager is actively picking stocks. It's a simple, low-cost way to get broad market exposure.
Okay. And then blue chip stocks. What are those exactly?
Blue chips are shares in really large, well-established, financially solid companies. Think big names with long histories of stable earnings, maybe paying dividends consistently.
Like the household names.
Often, yeah. They're generally seen as less risky, less volatile than smaller companies. They can form a kind of stable core for your investment portfolio.
Got it. Now, interestingly, they also mentioned gold, specifically sovereign gold bonds, SGBs. How does gold fit in?
Well, gold has traditionally been seen as a sort of safe haven. It often does okay when the economy or stock market gets shaky.
Mm-hmm.
SGBs are government-backed bonds that track the gold price. Plus, they pay a small amount of interest. It's a way to invest in gold without physically holding it, which avoids storage costs and security worries.
And tax benefits too, right?
Yes, certain tax advantages on maturity compared to physical gold.
Okay. And the last one they mentioned was REITs, real estate investment trusts. How do those work?
So REITs are basically companies that own or finance properties that generate income, like office buildings, malls, warehouses. By investing in a REIT, you get exposure to the real estate market, potentially earning income from dividends, and benefiting if the property values go up, but without having to buy an actual building yourself.
So easier access to real estate investing.
Much easier. Lower capital needed, and none of the landlord headaches.
Okay, so that's quite a mix. Mutual funds via SIPs, index funds, blue chips, gold bonds, REITs. A diverse range.
Definitely. And they even suggest a kind of general guideline for allocation, something like 60-30-10.
Yeah, 60% in equity, so stocks, equity funds.
Higher growth potential, higher risk.
30% in debt instruments, lower risk, more stable.
Right, like bonds or debt funds.
And 10% in gold.
Now, that's just a starting point, a general idea for someone in their 30s with a long time horizon.
Of course, everyone's different.
Exactly. Your personal risk tolerance, your specific goals, your timeline, all that matters. But the core idea they're stressing is diversification. Spreading your investments reduces overall risk.
And they really push that long-term view, don't they? Resisting the panic button when markets drop.
Oh, absolutely. They frame volatility as just noise. Temporary bumps on a longer road that generally trends upwards for patient investors.
That's such a crucial mindset shift. Because those drops can feel really scary in the moment.
They can, but investing truly is a marathon, not a sprint. You're aiming for that long-term growth, not trying to dodge every little dip.
Right. Okay, so we've covered where to potentially invest, but the series also talks about why you're investing, the importance of having clear financial goals by this age.
Yes, absolutely. And they suggest breaking them down. Short-term, mid-term, long-term.
Okay, what are the timelines roughly?
Short-term is like for the next 1 to 3 years. Mid-term, maybe 3 to 7 years. And long-term is, 10 years or more out.
And why categorize them like that?
Because it helps you match your investments to your timeline and how urgently you need the money.
Ah, makes sense.
Sure.
So for short-term goals, maybe a big holiday, down payment on a car.
Yeah, things you need the money for relatively soon. For those, they recommend lower risk, more liquid options. Things like fixed income investments where your capital is safer.
Okay. And for the long-term stuff, retirement, buying a house eventually.
For those distant goals, you can generally afford to take on a bit more risk for the potential of higher growth over time. So equities, equity mutual funds, things like that fit better.
So matching the risk and potential return to how far away the goal is?
Precisely. It stops you from gambling with money you need soon, and it lets you use the power of compounding for those really long-term dreams.
Which brings us neatly to retirement planning. Feels early in your 30s, maybe. But the series argues strongly for starting now.
They do, and it's based on solid logic. The earlier you start saving for retirement, the more time your money has to grow. That magic of compounding.
Where your returns start earning their own returns.
Exactly. Over decades, that effect is incredibly powerful. It can make a massive difference to your final retirement pot.
And they mentioned specific options in India, right? NPS, PPF.
National Pension System, NPS, Public Provident Fund, PPF. Equity mutual funds are key. Your employee's provident fund, EPF, is automatic for many. And even those sovereign gold bonds can play a part in long-term wealth building for retirement.
So using a mix of these.
Again, diversification is important here too. Using different retirement accounts helps build a more secure, potentially higher yielding outcome over the long haul.
They had that example, didn't they? Someone starting at 30.
Yes, investing just $5,000 a month. Assuming a 12% annual return, which is optimistic but possible over long periods in equity, they could potentially build a corpus of over 1 crore by age 60.
Wow. That really drives home the power of starting early and being consistent.
It really does. Time is your biggest asset when it comes to retirement saving.
Okay. Now, one more key area. As income hopefully grows in your 30s, there's this tendency for spending to creep up too. Lifestyle inflation. The series tackles this.
Yes, and it's an important one. They rightly point out, as you earn more, it's easy to just spend more. Often on non-essentials, sometimes driven by, keeping up with friends or social media.
The keeping up with the Joneses effect.
Pretty much. And the series offers some good ways to counter it.
Like what?
Well, one suggestion is focusing more on investing in experiences rather than just buying more stuff.
Oh, I like that. Experiences often bring more lasting happiness anyway.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
They also stress that key principle: save first, then spend. Not the other way around. Don't just save what's left over, if anything.
Pay yourself first.
That's the mindset shift. Make saving and investing the priority. And the advice to check if your investments are on track before making big lifestyle upgrades. New phone, fancier car, bigger place.
That makes sure your long-term goals don't get sidelined by short-term wants.
Exactly. It keeps your priorities straight.
So it boils down to being really intentional with your spending, right? Making sure it aligns with where you want to be financially in the long run, not just what feels good now or what others are doing.
Mm-hmm. The series suggests that developing that kind of mindful spending habit in your 30s is really what sets you up for long-term financial stability and success.
It's about conscious choices, not just reacting.
Precisely. Prioritizing your overall well-being over maybe fleeting satisfaction or external pressures.
Okay, so bringing this all together, Mastering Money at 30, the Indian playbook, clearly covers a huge amount. If you had to boil it down, what are the absolute core themes that jump out?
I'd say the central ideas are all about being proactive and informed. It starts with building that foundation through financial literacy and consistent budgeting,
Right.
then creating that safety net, the emergency fund, making smart choices about taxes, having a long-term diversified investment plan, actively planning for your future goals, especially retirement, and finally being mindful about lifestyle inflation so your spending actually supports rather than hinders those long-term plans.
That's a great summary. And for someone listening now thinking, okay, what can I actually do? What are some concrete next steps from the series they could start with?
Well, the series gives a pretty clear path. First, start that budget. Really figure out where your money is going now.
Get that clarity.
Second, prioritize building that emergency fund. Aim for at least 6 months of essential expenses. Third, look into starting SIPs if you haven't already. Get that regular investing habit going.
Okay.
Fourth, do the homework on the old versus new tax regime for 2025. See which makes more sense for your numbers.
Don't just assume, calculate.
Exactly. And finally, take some time to actually define your goals, short, medium, long term. Knowing what you're saving for provides direction and motivation.
And underpinning all of this, the series really stresses discipline, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's about consistently applying these basic principles over the long haul.
Patience and perseverance.
That's it. Financial success is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. Healthy financial habits maintained over time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Mastering Money at 30 series, maybe a final thought for everyone listening. How actively are you right now aligning your day-to-day spending with those bigger long-term financial goals you have? That's a tough question sometimes.
It is.
And maybe grilling down even further. What's just one small financial habit you could start, maybe even today, that you genuinely think would have the biggest positive ripple effect over the next 10 years?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
Yeah, definitely something to think about as you continue on your own path to hopefully mastering your money.